Hi, Scott Weaver from Factory Direct Designers Workroom, back at you again. Hopefully you've watched step one of my video, which is how to measure your window and how many scallops you can be using to use this pattern. The window that we measured in step one ended up being 37.5 wide, outside molding to outside molding, and we decided that we're going to make our valance 40 inches to give it a little room on either side. We've also discussed it in that video whether you're going to have draperies to it or if you're going to have just the valance itself. And in this case, we just decided to use the valance instead of draperies with it. And just as a recap, and also please also watch the introduction to this valance also, because it explains the pattern a little bit more in detail. So anyway, let's give me 1 second. Turn off the air conditioning. You might be able to hear me a little bit better. Also, we went by this pattern with the return. This is how it goes around the board and back to your wall, such as over here with this one. This is the return, and it returns back to the wall. That's why they call it a return. You have two options. You can put it on a 1x4 board or a 1x6 board. This one is mounted on a 1x6 board because there's going to be draperies underneath it. And for this valance, for the window that we're working on today, we are only going to use the 1x4 board, and I'll show you these again. This is the 1x4. 1x4 board is only 3.5 inches wide, and for that reason, we are going to be cutting off this line, which is the extended return line. If we were using the 1x6 board, which is this one, which is only 5.5, then we would leaving the pattern as it is. Okay, so we're going to begin by taking apart the pattern, this is exactly how you're going to get it. You'll find that it has pleating notches up at the top. You'll find that it has lines going across. Some of them you cut, some of them you don't, and they are labeled. So right now we're going to take apart your valance so you can see exactly what you have. You'd be surprised, this little valance actually is about 2.5 times, the pattern is about 2.5 times this. And also, I'm going to tell you that these are pleats in here. This is what's called a pleat, or right here is the pleat. It's the part in between the two scallops. Let's take this apart. So you have your pleats inside, your scallop, and your returns. And that's pretty much so all you have of this valance. Okay, taking it apart, this is what this is going to look like. And of course I can't get the whole thing on video, but I will explain it to you. The first part in red right here, it says return line, do not cut. So we're not going to cut that off. This line right here says extended return line, cut off if no drapery rod under valance. So there is none. We've determined we're not putting a drapery, so we're going to go ahead and cut this line off. Now I also wanted to point out something. If you accidentally cut off the wrong line that you weren't supposed to, simply put it back like this. Take some packing tape, clear packing tape, and just put some clear back on, and boom, you're all better. And also, after you've made the cuts on this and you're finished using the pattern, you can tape it back up and repleat it so you can save it for the next one. So it is totally reusable. It's made out of 100% cotton fabric. It's a professional quality. So now I've cut it off that side, I'm going to do the same on this side. And you may want to save these pieces, or as I described, you may want to, at some point, put this pattern back together to use again. On this, it also says cut a long line. This is your return, and we're going to take the return off, and because we're going to save that for later, we're going to put it back on at another point. So make sure you save it. This actually happens to be your right return, and then we're going to take off of your left return the same thing. Which, by the way, it's not marked, so we want to make sure it's right here. And we take this off, and we're going to save that one. So we have the left and right. Okay, now what we have left are 3 scallops. 1, 2, and 3. Marked in red is what you have to be aware of. If the label is marked in red, then you have to take a little bit closer attention to it. And this says center pleat line, do not cut. So we're going to leave that there. However, this one over here says to cut along this line. So we are cutting along this line. Now, what you have now is 1 scallop all by itself. And in this case, we're not using this scallop because we're only using 4 scallops on our valance. We're making a 40-inch wide valance. We're using 4 10-inch scallops, so we only need to use this. However, the reason why you're getting a 3rd scallop is because you may need an odd scallop sometime down the line. So in other words, if you had another valance that recalls for 5 scallops, or 7 scallops, or 9 scallops, in this one right here is actually 7 scallops. That's why giving you another scallop. So with that being said, we're just going to put these 3 pieces to the side, the 2 returns, the left and right, and the additional scallop that's not going to be needed for this video. Now comes, we're going to cut our material. And we're only making 4 scallops, so we're going to make 2 cuts out of this material, this tan. So what you want to do is measure how long you need to make the cut. This valance is going to finish at 16 inches deep. And it's going to take a 1/2 inch sewing allowance at the bottom and a 1/2 inch sewing allowance at the top, which is already included. So this valance itself is 17 inches from top to bottom. I'm going to recommend that you cut your fabric 2 inches over. So you have 19. Just so it makes it a little easier when you're trimming out the scallops that you're not cutting just a little bit off. So that being said, we know we need 4 scallops. I'm going to make 2 cuts out of this fabric of 19 inches. Now I'm cheating. I'm sure you don't have this, but on the other side, which you can't see, there's a tape measure just like this one. So I can make my 2 cuts, and I'm going to make 1 cut at 19 inches. And yes, I'm also cheating because I have a nice little extension on my pencil like that. Then I'm going to go over to 38 inches, and that'll give me 2 cuts at 19 inches. And then I'm just going to cut it. It's a good idea to have very sharp scissors. The duller scissors aren't going to work very, very good. Excuse my head, by the way. Okay. Now we have both cuts. Fabric I'm using is 54 inches wide. The pattern, which I'll measure in a minute, I believe you only need 45 inches. Let me just get a tape measure so we can tell. Grab my tape measure. Let's see what this pattern is. The center part of this pattern, you can see, is much shorter. And it measures only 41.5 inches. So if you're only using a 48-inch wide fabric, you'd have plenty. So now I'm stacking these two pieces on top of each other, keeping this nice and straight. I'm putting my pattern on. Now, since I'm using a solid fabric, I'm going to come all the way over fairly close to the selvage on this side, and I'm going to save those pieces. I can save them from my returns or whatever. I'm just one of those type of people that why waste the fabric? You may need it at some point. Now I'm going to pin it. I'm going to do it just for cases. I don't normally, but I'm going to put some pins across the top also just to hold it. If I was actually cutting this valance, not videotaping, I probably wouldn't bother with pinning the top, but I've also done this many times. You also notice I'm pinning things a little differently than what you may pin. I'm sticking my pins in with the points going towards the bottom of the scallop. Most people pin going this way. I don't like doing that. And the reason I don't is because it can distort your scallop going around. If you feel more comfortable, if you feel it holds better, fine. It's going to be your prerogative. For myself, I like to keep my points going downward. But either way will get the job done. It's just my preference. I'm also not overly pinning it because I feel that overly pinning a pattern results into a lot of little bumps unnecessarily. You just need enough pins to hold it. Now, if this valance was wider, if you needed more scallops, you could stack more layers on this. I've only got the 2 because I'm only using 4 scallops, but you could put more. But keep in mind, the more layers that you put on it, the more chances that you're not going to get your scallops perfectly round. And if you're a female or even a male who's weak, has very arthritic hands maybe or whatever, maybe you only want to use 1 layer. That's going to be up to you. So now I'm going to go ahead and cut off my side. Cut off my other side. I'm not going to recommend you doing this upside down like I am, but for the video, I don't really have much of a choice. So I'm just going to go ahead and do it this way. There you have it. Remove the pins, and you notice at the top of this there are these V's cut in the pattern. And you're going to want to put those V's into the fabric. Now you don't want deep V's because you only have a 1/2 inch for your sewing allowance or at the top, or actually your mounting. So you don't want to be putting these big huge V's in it. You want them just big enough that you can see them. And that's all you need. But do make sure that all layers have the V. Okay. That's done. I'm going to remove this, and we are done with this portion. Helps if I remove all the pins. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, one layer off. This is the face of my valance. This is the back of the fabric. I'm going to take it, I'm going to face them face to face. And then I'm going to pin these two pieces together. This is where I'm going to sew to put these together. Just like that. Now you've got your 4 scallops. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you notice you'll have your spaces. And this is your notch. And what's going to happen is when we're ready with the lining and everything, these two come together, forming your scallop, and so on. But I'll show you that later. But anyway, that's your 4. Now we have to cut the returns. You're going to be making 4 cuts for your returns. Sorry for the dogs. The mailman's here. They always bark at the mailman. These are the returns. Now what I'm going to do now is going to make an additional cut of 19 inches. You don't have to. You can simply cut these out the way they are individually. But I do this all the time. I'm going to show you a little easier way, a little faster, but don't feel that you have to do it this way. I want you to do it the way that you feel comfortable with it. But I'm going to do 19 inches again. Save my extra. Now, I have a left and I have a right. You have 2 options. They're both exactly the same. You put them together. One of the ways to do it is just put one of these and cut twice. You can do that. And that's fine, perfectly fine. I'm going to fold this fabric in half. This is the face of my fabric. And you don't have to do it this way. I don't want you to get confused. But it's just a little quicker. I'm going to take 1/2. And I'm going to put it on here. I'm only using 1/2 of it. And it doesn't matter if you flip it either way. Because once I flip my fabric, I'm going to get a left and right, so it doesn't matter. Stick a few pins in. A little bit. Okay, now I have a left and a right, and don't forget you got a little notch up at the top. That's a pleating notch. It's important to cut your notch out. Now what I'm going to do, since this fabric is nearly the same on both sides, just as a reminder, I'm putting a little pencil mark on the back of each so I know that that's the back of the fabric. Oops. And now I have a left and a right. While I'm here, I am also going to make 2 more cuts. And this is going to be for the lining side of the return. This is the only part, all of this is lined in regular white lining as you see here. But the back side of the return has the lining, it has the fabric on it, because you get a projection view from this angle, and you don't always want to see the white. I like to see the self fabric on just the return only. So having that said, I'm just going to make 2 square cuts at this time. Measuring it, it's 6 inches. Now I still have my fabric in half, so that means when I cut 6 inches, I'm actually cutting 2 pieces, which is exactly what I need. Okay. Get my 2 pieces, and I'm also going to mark these pieces so I remember which is the correct side. Okay, that's the back side and the back side, and I'm going to put these, and you notice I'm not shaping it. I'm only cutting them square for now. No shaping on the inside of the return, which is going to be the lining. So we're going to hold that to the side. Now it's going to be time to put this returns on here. And you see there's my mark, so I know that that is the the back side of the fabric. And I'm going to put some pins in here. Keeping the pins away a little bit because we're going to make a 1/2 inch sewing allowance on this. So just keep them away from your sewing allowance a little bit. That's that. And then the other one is going to go on the opposite side. See me here. Okay. Now this is ready to be sewn. Now we're going to have to seam those. Now we're going to worry about our lining. Time to cut our lining. In this case, I'm just using plain white lining. You can use a contrast lining. The outside of our workroom here is white siding. I want it to match the outside of the home, or outside of the workroom. So I'm using white. Now when we originally cut, we cut 19 inches over. It was 17 inches was the pattern. We're cutting 2 inches over. We're going to repeat that again with 2 more cuts of 19 inches. That's 19. Another 19 inches is 38 inches. Now for you, you can cut either way you like to do. You can make one cut, pull it down, make another cut. I understand a lot of you people are probably making this on your kitchen table. So the way I'm doing it may not work for you. But either way, you have to make 2 cuts at 19 inches. Excuse my head one more time. Now, taking my lining and I'm going to turn it this way so you can see it a little bit better. Now I have to cut the width of it down. Now I'm going to take my pattern, my original pattern, and I'm going to measure it. Now keep in mind there are these creases which can distort your measurement. So you have 2 options. Either give this a little tautness to it, just a little bit to get them out, or use the actual valance that you just cut. I just so happen I've got these nice clamps so I can clamp one end down, pull it. And 42 inches seems to be what the width of this actually is. So now I'm going to cut this down to 42 inches to meet the pattern. since I got two cuts here, this is the face of my lining. It's got a little bit more of a sheen than the other side. Not that you can tell in this video, but trust me, it does. Now I'm going to take one, I'm going to face it downward, because we're going to have to seam these two together. I'm going to take pins, and again pin it. And now we are taking the lining pieces, the return pieces that we cut out, and we are going to put these on. There's the mark, so I know it's the bottom, or the wrong side I should say. And we're going to pin these in. So the lining is cut the exact same as the pattern, and the returns that are self-lined are cut the exact width. And the reason why I'm doing this is because I want my seams to end up directly in the middle of the pleat, right in between the scallops. But I want the seams to line up in both the fabric and the lining. I have seen the one mistake that I've seen many people do is not care where their lining seams are and say, oh, and it ends up someplace in here or in the middle of the scallop. Well, guess what? That bright sunlight hits it, and it's like an X-ray machine, and all you see is the seam of the lining, even though there's no seam in the scallop. So it's important to keep your lining seam lined up with your fabric seam, or at least have it in the pleat that goes behind, so you don't get that. So keep that in mind, and that's why I'm doing this. Looking for my mark on my, right here. Going to pin this piece. Okay, now we're ready to seam the lining and seam the fabric. Now I want to point out one other thing here. I am not shaping out my lining to the valance, and that's another mistake a lot of people do. You want to seam your fabric and press the seams on both the fabric and the lining, and then, only then, we're going to take the valance and we're going to put it face to face, we're going to pin it all in, and then we're going to cut the lining out to it, because the face fabric of this has to go down face to this. And so you don't really want to pre-cut the lining. It's just not a good idea to do that. We're going to seam it first, we're going to seam the lining, seam the fabric, then we're going to put it on. So we'll see you at the sewing machine for step number 3. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.